Great trip to both China and Japan. Very happy to be back. Lots of news over the next few weeks that we'll share with you. So let's start out with some of the news from our trip. We focused on three main tea areas on the trip. One was the Chima Needle area, one was a yellow tea area, and then one was Premier's Choice. Saw lots of great things on that part of the trip. And this is the trip with customers. Obviously, we went to other places as well. So instead of leading with a headline about those places, I'm going to come back, particularly Chiman Factory in a minute and Premier's Choice in a minute. I'm going to lead with another headline. Matcha location is changing. How's that for a headline? Matcha currently is done for the most part in Japan. Is that going to be the long-term trajectory of matcha? Apparently not. The Chinese tea industry has decided to enter the matcha marketplace. In a way, I should have said the headline is coming back home, because matcha originated actually in China. And so it's not like, and this is going to be a repeated theme today, it's not like taking a plant and saying, oh, we've never grown this plant here before, but we're really smart. We're going to put it here and we're going to grow something and be a major player. No, that's not what's happening here. The plant already exists. That is the birthplace of the tea plant, and it's the birthplace of the process. What did the Japanese do that was so special? They caretook it. In other words, when they first learned this process in the 700s, they created it for the monk community in Japan, is stay awake while they're meditating. And there was a break in the relationship between China and Japan. So Japan didn't realize that in the 1100s or 1200s, that tea processing was changing in China. Instead of steaming, it was being roasted. Instead of making cakes and chipping it and grinding it up, it was loose leaf. So the Japanese, unaware of this, continued the matcha process. And then they refined the matcha process. Well, we're going to come full circle, I have a feeling, because the Chinese are looking at the Japanese matcha market and realizing fewer and fewer farmers are doing matcha in Japan. It's hard work. It's not easy. The demand is steady in Japan, but what about worldwide? Worldwide, it's exploding. Everyone loves their matcha. Oh, wait a minute. We got to examine that statement here. Yes, world consumption is increasing, but it's a little bit like consumption of coffee. If it increases, you have one sort of assumption. But the real facts of the matter is, as coffee consumption increases, as matcha consumption increases, what else increases? Oh, sugar consumption, milk consumption. So matcha as the original pure product, as the ceremonial product, is declining. In Japan, we had two unpleasant surprises. We went to a tea house. We were so excited. This was in Okayama. Went there. We go in, and we were there early. We didn't realize we were there early, but we were there early, so we waited. We actually waited for an hour, and they gave us some mochi to taste, homemade mochi. That was good. And then they opened up and we went upstairs. Big old long table, and we thought, okay, we're going to get real ceremony. And beautiful teaware, beautiful ceramics, bamboo to ladle out the water. Oh, it was beautiful. And both Bijou and I were thinking, what a treat. Because we've had these treats before in Japan. And so I'm sitting there kind of just savoring the moment. And I see the guy ladle hot water out of this beautiful water holder, rock water. And then what did my eyes detect? To my shock, I detected, wait a minute, isn't he pulling milk out of a refrigerator? And I'm thinking, I thought I ordered matcha. I didn't order a matcha latte. So I stopped him from moving further. I said, remember, I ordered a matcha. And he said, oh, yeah. And we put milk in it. I said, not in mine, you don't. And so he actually made an exception for us and created pure matcha. But this is not what they're serving. And yet they're calling it matcha right at the counter. So that was an interesting experience. And we experienced that twice. And both times I caught it before it got into an emergency situation. Where is traditional matcha being served? It's being served in temples. Government officials, especially elderly government officials, seem to be doing matcha. But is the general Japanese population, in other words, when you go to these places in Japan, are you getting that ceremonial matcha? No, you are not. You're getting some sort of mix with matcha as the base. So the Chinese, again, have looked at this situation and realized we have a chance to bring it back home. And so you're going to start to see on the market matcha from China. Now, how should you feel? I'll tell you how we feel. We're excited because we're already plugged into the Chinese market. We've already put in a special request because the Chinese market always stratifies things. And you know that from our shop. Oh, the super premium teas. Let's give me some super premium teas. The middling teas, and then market teas. They're going to stratify the matcha market as well. So as they do that, and as we find special matcha, much to our surprise, we are unlikely to bring it back from Japan. There are some other things we might bring back, but not that. We think we'll end up bringing that back from China. Without taking too much more time, I want to tell you about another tea shop we went to in Japan. So we're maybe about 20 miles, no, maybe 15 miles outside the tourist area near Fuji Mountain. It's a small town, really a small town. And we walk there, we're walking through, and on the right side, so the one main street, there's this coffee shop, and we saw that. And then on the left side, there's this tea shop. So we entered the tea shop. They're doing real tea. Turns out that the wife loves tea and does tea at the shop. The husband does coffee across the street. Which of those shops is doing a booming business? That would be the coffee shop. Japan is about their coffee. The traditionalists in Japan who live in this area have the privilege of attending the wife's shop or shopping at the wife's shop. And actually, as she began to understand that we understood stuff about tea, then she started to talk about her excitement and her disappointment. The excitement is that we were in the shop. The disappointment is that fewer and fewer young people are drinking tea in Japan. And that's just the way it is right now. The coffee thing has become really big in Japan. So we got some good loose leaf tea there, some really good loose leaf tea, and we're thinking about whether to source some through there. We also went to a couple farms. We're thinking about that. We're just not as excited as some of the Chinese stuff that we've seen. And again, we're particularly excited that the Chinese elite, tea elite, are moving into the matcha space because we will, if they go full in, which we believe they are, we will get that. Yes.
Was there ever any concern during the not a complete meltdown, but during the more recent crisis, which affected water quality to some extent in Japan, were the tea fields impacted? How far are they from the flow of water from the plant that had a problem?
So this is a great question. I assume you're talking about the Fukushima.
Yes.
Okay. So the tea fields we're talking about are probably 800 or 900 miles away. That in and of itself isn't a safe number, but it does indicate that they weren't on top of the situation. Japanese scientists, we partially paid for a study, and this was 3 years ago, for a tea coming out of Japan, whether they're radioisotopes that we don't want to ingest. And in the area where we're thinking of buying, there are not. They can find no proof of those. And this was a joint thing that we contributed with a Chinese buyer as well, because everybody is kind of interested, not because the Chinese aren't going to grow stuff there in Japan. Just doesn't make sense. They're growing stuff in their home country. This is the home of matcha. That is, China is the home of matcha, even though modern day thought is Japan is. That's not the tradition. The tradition is it was invented in China. China has never left the playing field. That's the other thing. In other words, what I mean by that, did the Chinese, say in the year 1200 or 1300, whatever year, did they completely stop steaming tea leaves? Answer is no. Even to this day, remember, we had a tea maybe about 6 months ago where the leaves are steamed. So they still understand the process. They understand how to grind up the tea. They do that for tea bags. So all the mechanisms are in place for them to have huge success, most especially having the right varietals and the right terroir. So that's going to launch us into the Wulong today that we're going to talk about, the cliff tea, compassion, terroir, varietal, and process. Those three things. I will talk over the next few weeks about a number of other things related to both Japan and China. And at odd moments, you'll hear more information from the trip. Fabulous trip, by the way, with the customers. Just a fabulous trip. Everything went just about as well as it could have gone. So we're doing compassion today. And really, compassion is a result of 21 years of hybridization work. When did this 21 years occur? 1977 through 1998. Remembering to hybridize a new varietal of tea using the Chinese model, it takes 20 plus years. Why? They're looking at yield. They're looking at yield year over year. They're looking at pest resistance. They're also looking at flavor. They do all of these things. And it just takes a long time to create a new hybrid. So compassion is a hybrid that was invented and on the market starting around 1999, and immediately was used and planted all over the Wui Mountains. Why? One of the contributors was Huangdan. That's a varietal that naturally grows in the Wui Mountains. The other part of that contribution came from Iron Goddess Light, which grows in southern Fujian province. The result, the end result was something that is robust. It's a medium sized bush. It's very forgiving if it doesn't get enough water. It's fairly good at withstanding pests. Natural, perfect for the Wui Mountains. Where else is it grown? It's grown in other parts of China as well. So it's spread to other parts of China, but they're not, for the most part, making oolong from it. They are both in the Wui Mountains, and there's one other place in Canton province that they're making Wulong from it, but not cliff tea. So I merged over from terroir. This is very important because current studies show that 100% of the time, and this goes back to a discussion that occurred in 2015 in here when a scientist, a local scientist said, give me soil samples, give me the right varietal, and I'll reproduce any tea you have in here. And the answer is that's a fail. And now there's scientific proof for that because within this last year, they completed a study where they proved that you can look at the metabolites. So we're using a big word, so that means what I'm about to say is true. Oh, and I'm wearing linen today, which doubly means it's true. What that metabolites are products that the plant produces internally. They looked at those and then they looked at rare earth samples. Why did they do this? And how does this get to 100% predictability? The metabolites get about 85, 86, 87% reliability of predicting where the particular varietal is from, but it's not 100%. The rare earths seal the deal. There are about 15 rare earths that they look at, and they know that the plant can only be, it's 100%. And that's what you can't reproduce, those two things. When this varietal first came on the market, could you go in the store and say, oh, I want whatever a Chinese name is for it? No, because when it first went to market, it was one of these numbered teas. It was 105. So you had to ask for 105. There's no fun in asking for 105. You know, you ask Scarlet Robe, Compassion, Cloak of Heaven. Now that's fun because you know you're getting all these added benefits. Oh, alleged added benefits. Gradually, it got a name on its own. And it's called Huangguanin, so yellow iron goddess, so to speak. That's a lousy translation, but that's the one you would probably see most places because it's a literal translation. This varietal has become important within the Wui Mountains. Does it equal an importance Scarlet Robe? No. Does it equal an importance Cinnabar or Green Robe Narcissus? No. It's not at that level, but it's at the next level down. And again, it's because farmers have an easy time growing it. And because year after year, the yield is pretty consistent. And, oh, there's one other thing. You know what? It tastes pretty good. So you have all of these things together and you add up with a home run from a hybridization point of view. Now, there's two things, and I'm going to use scientific words again so you know they're true. They're true. There's two things which influence the floralness of cliff teas. Oh, that was very poorly said. There are two constituents of the extrusion, that is, of the when you brew it, that influence heavily floralness of cliff teas. One is linalool, Linalool, and the other is nonalol, Nonalal. You don't need to remember those things. I'll remember them and I'll keep using them, and eventually you'll absorb them. And both of those things, both of those compounds occur not only in the leaves, but they occur in the stems. However, the percentages are different in leaf and stem. So that's why, as they're doing the processing, they're trying to focus on the leaves. Why am I bringing up anything like this in the first place? Because now there's a science that's developing behind what is going on with the processing that accentuates that, or what is going on with the processing that makes that less and brings out other elements. Over the next 4 weeks, you're going to hear other steps. For example, the roasting step, what it can bring up. Yes.
Peter asked, first of all, he says, welcome back, like getting the Beatles back together again. And the question is, did I catch that right? That there are tiers of the different clones? And if so, what is the measure or standard?
Tiers of the different clones. I'm not quite it's a great question, Peter, and I want to make sure I completely understand. When you say tiers, that implies to me that there's a level of quality by clone. And I'm not trying to suggest that. Instead, what I'm suggesting is where you grow it, you're going to have a certain outcome. And once you have that outcome, will that outcome be the same in place to place? The answer is no, by the way.
And might I suggest that perhaps this question is born in part of the ranking that you suggested, which was with Scarlet Robe at the top, Centaur, and then Compassion. I'm going to assume there.
Oh, I completely misunderstood the question. Okay, so this is an artificial ranking, isn't it? And it's artificial because it's what has happened over time. In other words, Scarlet Robe has the lore, has the taste, and for 4, 5, 6, 700 years has been very, very popular. The Cinnabar, again, it's been around for a long time, very popular. Green Robe Narcissus, also the same thing. And lots of farmers actually grew that. Once they introduced Compassion, then some of the farmers who are growing more of, say, green robe narcissus thought, oh, this is interesting. And we can do interesting things. So they started to replace some of the acreage, but they haven't replaced all the acreage. And when this ranking is truly artificial because it's based on time. Scarlet Robe will always be the tea because it's hard to overcome the stories surrounding the tea, and you've got the 6 remaining bushes. I mean, there's a tradition. Wulong is under 30 years old. See, I do that math right. It's under 40 years old. Therefore, it doesn't have enough tradition, but it has enough good taste to rise up so that people are appreciating, oh, I want some of that. I like that taste, but I don't want it instead of these other things. It's a good addition. And so this is a great question, Peter, because it actually touches upon something else related to the Cliff Teas. So there are probably between 125 to maybe up to 300 different varietals. And so the question would be, why are some varietals maybe only 10 bushes? And how come they haven't expanded that? Well, maybe, not maybe, some of those varietals have such low yield that to replace acreage that's yielding higher, farmers not going to do it. They keep the low yield, they produce it or process it, I should say, pick, process, and sell. And when they sell, it's like, oh, we're the only ones who have this, or there's only 50 pounds, or there's only 20 pounds. These teas are so famous that do we care when we're in Wulong Mountains? Why do I like being in the Wulong Mountains? This is where the real question comes from. Because Bijou takes the governor off. You know, the price comes back some ridiculous price. She doesn't even bat an eye, and I can get all of it. Because we know that that's all there is. And so as a result, we're thinking of you. Well, and me secondarily, because I like it on the side. So this is what happens with the Cliff Teas. It's location, it's varietal, and it's rarity. And it's also skill of the farmer. Lineage tea. By the way, going back to matcha for a second, let's see. There's many seconds I've already used. Okay, going back to matcha. What's the other issue with Japan and matcha? So years ago, a new customer or new prospect came in and said, oh yeah, I just came back from Japan. I get my matcha at 7-Eleven. It's really, really good. This year, when we went to the tea shop that I talked about earlier, the lady got out matcha from various places and we had a chance to taste side by side. 7-Eleven matcha is not very good. How can it be when you really think about it? So, how did I get on that tangent?
Let's see. We were talking about ranking of teas within Cliff Teas. And then, the next thing I knew, we were swimming in a very expensive Cliff Tea. And then I'm not sure how we got back to matcha.
I'm not sure how I got it. Never mind. I got into that, and it's usual one of those sidebar things. Okay. I've talked already as much as my time allows me to. And now it's time to have real talk. And that's called Tea Master, Bijou Talk and Demonstration. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to welcome numinous Tea Master Bijou.
Hi, good morning. 早上好. Yeah, we do 岩茶. So I call 岩茶 from Wulong Mountain. Yeah. So today now I learn, but this is new. It's just part of this trip in China. So yeah, it's so I'm so happy see see everybody. Yeah. So I'm excited. So I do okay. Right now I do tea called Cliff Tea. So yeah, John, help me. This is the
So here's the normal setup:
Yeah.
a tray. We're going to use Nishing pot. the tea tray, and we have a couple of cups. Your setup should either be an Ishin pot or a ceramic pot. Don't use glass if you can help it. And one receptor
Yeah.
glass. So we're using 200-degree water, heating up everything, making sure that your timer is set for 3 minutes. The question has come up, by the way, already in the shop. How many new teas have we brought back? I remind everybody, we never these years bring back new teas with us. We always go through official FDA channels, have make purchases, have the tea inspected by the Chinese, and then have it inspected by the FDA. We're not ready. We've already made some preliminary purchases, but we're not ready to make the full set of purchases because the Cliff teas aren't ready yet. They won't be ready until the end of August. So we really won't know until September what we're going to get this year. We did nonetheless see some beautiful green teas, some beautiful yellow teas. All right, the tea master put the leaves in the heated Ishin pot. She's drawing 200-degree water. She's pouring it in. And I'm setting the timer for 3 minutes. All right. So in a minute, you'll have a chance to do this, but this is the demonstration, and then we'll have a discussion of what you're tasting. So the other thing that was very apparent this year as we were going through the tea fields, and year after year, you're going to hear me talk about this more because we're seeing it here. We're seeing expenses rise for everything. Why are they rising? Well, one of the important reasons they're rising is because weather is changing. And as weather changes, and this is even harder for Japan, because think of Japan is a smaller area of land. China's a huge area of land. So if you have weather change in Southwest China, but the weather is more or less the same everywhere else, the tea crop will be affected, but on the surface, not so much. When you have it happen in a small area, it's hugely affected. So again, this year in Japan, we heard about early heat. Think back to our January here in California. We had very warm days in January. Japanese had the same thing in Japan. They've had some unexpected floods in places. Chinese are dealing with that also in the southern part of China. And they're also dealing with extraordinary heat right now, although this isn't so far out of bounds in terms of timing. But everything is changing. And as it changes, that increase costs. Other things that are increasing costs are the obvious things. You have disarray in the world. That increases costs. When energy costs continue to go up, that affects everybody. It affects all of us because we rely so much on transportation, on energy costs to run the processing areas. What isn't changing and what you get the benefit of, and what you'll see in today's tea, lineage. Chinese lineages, while they are declining, they're not declining at the speed that Japanese lineages are. Japanese lineages, and this is a numbers problem. You have 122 million people in Japan. That's a number, right? You have 1.7 billion people in China. That's another number. If the same percentage is applied to each population, that's the other third number. And when you think about those numbers, you suddenly realize, this is why Japanese tea is affected so much more obviously. By the way, the lineages are declining faster in Japan than they are in China as well. Okay, so 3 minutes finished. We have, oh my gosh, a beautiful cup of something here. Well, it's a beautiful cup of compassion. We're going to enter the quality arena, my favorite place to live. It's very hot. It's 200 degrees. So take a 200-degree inhalation. So I already have a feel of astringency, which is what I was looking for immediately. I'm getting a feel for after. Oh, this has a nice aftertaste. Interjects will come in a minute. I'm going to verify taste and aroma and everything else that I just talked about. I am pretty happy. Let's see how you are. It's your turn to brew. So remember, it's 200-degree water, 3 minutes. It's the package labeled compassion.
In the tea context, when you said lineages, are you referring to family traditions when it comes to growing and processing of tea?
Yes, great question. Lineages means family traditions. I use this word like, like I use the word grandma. So if grandma has done recipes a certain way and it's been passed down, it's a code word for there's a tradition that's being passed down. So in the Wulong Mountains, many of these farmers have lineages that are 9, 10, 11 generations. And so these recipes aren't an accident. They're the result of lots of refinements over the years. And that's what I mean when I say lineages. Let's see, did you already pour water in there? I've lost my place here. Okay, you're about to pour water. Okay, so you're gonna put the water in the pot. Remember, this is covered. 3-minute steeping time. And I love all our tea children in here. And throughout the trip, I had a chance to engage with many of the tea children. Nonetheless, what do I really miss if there have been several days that I haven't visited a particular set of tea children? I really miss the cliff teas. And I did miss them a lot on this journey because, particularly in Japan, we carried cliff teas with us. But particularly in Japan, we were drinking a lot of green tea and we were sharing with people in Japan white tea. And we just weren't getting enough of the cliff teas. Yes.
In the pictures sent out, the tea plants don't look as bushy and full as monoclonal fields. Can you speak to that? Not if you understand the question.
I understand the question. This question contains in it two elements. And so I can certainly address both of those elements. Some of the fields, when they're in the interior, aren't set up like monoclonal fields. They're set up, especially if they're smaller, they're set up to grow and not be supervised in the same way that a monoclonal field is. So they seem almost wild. They're not wild. They're set up this way on purpose. When it's a sufficiently large plot that they're doing, it doesn't make sense to set it up that way. It makes sense to set it up as a monoclonal field. I believe one of those shots, if I'm not incorrect, comes from an original area where this farmer was part of the testing team for this particular tea. And that's why we included it in there. And his was not a monoclonal field. In general, and this is because of knowledge that's been accumulated over the years, newer plots are always set up as monoclonal fields because from a scientific viewpoint and from these research center viewpoints, it's easier to control the variables. But remember, this started in the 70s and they weren't doing it in such a disciplined manner. Now they're doing it in an extremely disciplined manner, and you wouldn't see that. All right. Your timer should have gone off. You're using T rhythm. Not in a hurry. Nice and steady. Beautiful. All right. So the time for you to enter the tea arena, the first thing you would look at is just the beauty of this color. You'd look at the leaves also because these leaves are actually quite beautiful. They have tinges of red in them. They have green in them. Some darker green, a little bit lighter green as well. Beautiful leaves, beautiful cliff tea leaves. And what you should particularly notice about these leaves is the fullness of them. And even though they are not open fully, you can see that they're full leaves. My goodness, I really miss being here. This trip was a particularly long one. And again, having Japan at the back end meant that I didn't have as much cliff tea and was trying a lot of other things. And I just missed this. And I was really looking forward to having this one as part of this series.
While the tea participants are brewing and thinking about it, let me ask, did you find anything else that reminds you of compassion on this trip?
No, because the question is, did we find anything else that reminds us of compassion? And not exactly. Reason being twofold. One is we spent very little time in the Wui Mountains. It was just actually a blow through, so to speak. The reason being is their tea isn't ready yet. And so the result is we won't get samples until end of August. So that's the most important thing. The other thing, and this will be kind of an irony, but it's part of how we do things here at the shop. Now, sometimes we're so busy that it takes us a long time to get to getting teas on the board. Sometimes they never make it to the board. Instead, they're on Post-its somewhere. The point here is in doing inventory this year, we realized that there are a number of cliff teas we still haven't opened. And this is from last year and gotten ready to be on the board. So within this next 10 days or so, there are going to be some new cliff teas. They're not from this year. They're from last year. And remembering in general, this seems like it's a long delay. It's not. In general, the Chinese best cliff teas are done by the end of September, sometimes into October. Usually they hold them from market until the following Chinese New Year's. And then they put them on market. And there's several reasons. One of the main reasons is some of the really, really good ones are so intense. And for those of you who had Hallowed Fortress in the beginning, you'll remember the intensity of that was so much. Yeah, it was great, but you know, too much, too much. And then as it, in quotes, cooled down and aired out, then that full flavor came forth, and you weren't overwhelmed by the minerality and the roasting. So that's why it seems weird that we are going to put last year's on, but it's not a year ago. It's much less than a year. The other thing you should understand moving forward about the cliff teas, we've gotten more and more selective these years because we have access to the championship teas. And so usually now we're trying to stay within that realm because we have so many teas. We don't need things that we already have. We need very unusual things. So while you're thinking about compassion, I'll talk about it a little bit. When we first got this in house, this instantly rose to one of my favorites. And there's a reason for that. And I don't want to kind of spoil your comments, but I will make one comment and then it'll be up to you to fill in the rest of the blanks. The blend of flavors in this one there's so much going on with this one. That's why I like this right away. And that tends to be where I go. I'm looking for a lot of flavors. Occasionally, so we have things like Guardian Angel. For those of you who've had Guardian Angel, I love that tea. But the channel of flavors is relatively narrow. I love that combination of this narrow channel of flavors. This one has a much wider channel of flavors.
In tea competitions, is complexity valued? Complexity of flavors valued more highly than some amazing couple of flavors, let's say, that are coming through predominantly?
Great question. So let's step back a minute and talk about competitions. Competitions involve people from the Wui Mountains. They also involve professional judges. So you have this mix of people who are making judgments. Some people, especially those who are from the Wui Mountains, are able to err on the side of, oh my gosh, this channel is so beautifully narrowed. Whereas the professional judges, you recall I've said in the past, start out with one objective. And that objective is, let's get rid of everything that it has defects in it. And so the starting points are different. And that's why it's hard to answer that question, because it's a combination.
Rob observes the feel on the tongue is thick. The feel in the nose is smooth, gives me a vision of rocky florality cloaked in velvet. Weaving throughout is this honey sweetness.
Love this. Cliff tea florality wrapped in velvet with a honey sweetness, weaving through honey sweetness. So Rob has captured the floralness. He's captured density of liquid, mouthfeel, not liquid, of mouthfeel. He's captured a sweetness. It's not sugary sweetness, it's honey, so it's linked to that floral. And the velvety implies a smoothness. There absolutely is a smoothness slash mellowness to this. This is a cliff tea that if you were worried, gosh, I wonder if my friend who claims they like cliff tea will like what I have. Let's start at a home run ground that you're not going to have to think about. This is a great place to start. If you instead were a guardian angel or hallowed fortress, there's some risk because if the person claims they're a cliff tea lover but isn't experienced, oh, this is outside my experience. This will clearly fall within a cliff tea lover's experience. Yes.
Peter says, is the orange tint to the tea water influencing me to think that the fruitiness could have some orange fruit to it? I really love the minerality. And despite this affinity, it makes me drink slower.
Love this comment. So Peter talks about color, and we're going to get to color in a minute. Talks about the minerality. And I'm glad that you mentioned that minerality because in addition to the mellowness, you can't get, it's a real cliff tea. You can't get away from minerality. And if you don't call it out to some degree, that's a mistake. The orangeness, and I love this comment, the orangeness, the visual makes Peter think of the actual fruit. From my perspective, this is an orangeness that makes me think more of caramel. So that sweetness rather than citrus. I literally cannot taste the citrus in here, but I catch the beauty of this because that was the first thing I called out. The other thing is from a perspective of using long words and them being believed. Lots of theaflavins. Yes.
Kay says, totally agree when it comes to minerality. I would only add that it leads with a punch of minerality. Actually said I totally agree, period, with Peter's comment, and says, I would only add it leads with a punch of minerality.
I like this because this is a group of experienced cliff tea drinkers, and therefore you know what to look for. Rob looked for the floralness, he looked for the sweetness, he looked for that mellow tone. Kay and Peter looked for that minerality, they found it. And yet, when you think of this, it's a knit of all of these things together. And it can't be a cliff tea without minerality. If it's not doesn't have the minerality, it's unlikely, it's false advertising for the most part. Great comment. Okay.
Jennifer observes, this is just a dance of both floral and citrus. For her, mandarin orange, Meyer lemon, ripe peach, nectarine, and blossoms. I can't pinpoint which ones. Honeysuckle or jasmine, maybe. They aren't orange blossoms or cherry. Still trying to pin this down. Jennifer go out to say, I get minerality only after a few sips. And if you let it sit on your tongue too long, which I refuse to let it do, because I know I don't like it. For the minerality, Jennifer, is it the, oh, sorry, Jen. Yeah. Jen E. Because you know you don't like it. Are you saying that the minerality is unpleasant for you, Jen, or yeah, she doesn't like minerality. Okay, got it. Thank
I
you.
knew it was Jenny
Yeah, yeah,
because yes,
Clarifying.
she likes. Great comment, by the way. Jen talks about a implied fruitiness, not being able to say specifically anywhere from mandarin orange through peach through nectarine. There's some fruitiness floating through here. No question that that's in the ballpark. Then she talks about, and this is a great comment because there's something implied here. How do you drink your cliff teas? Do you drink your cliff teas quickly? If you do, with a tea like this, you may not detect much minerality. If you drink it like Peter and Kay are drinking it, which is they're letting it roll around in their mouths, that minerality is coming forth. Great comments from everybody here because how you appreciate cliff tea determines, and so there's a mechanic in it. How you drink it determines how you appreciate it. And I love the fact that we've come up with that this morning because normally I forget to tell people, oh, if you drink this fast, you're going to get the aromatics. If you drink this slowly, you're going to get more of the roast. You're going to get more of the minerality. Great comment. And this is also helpful to me because it reminds me that when I'm dealing with people who are new to cliff tea, I got to point this out. Great observation.
Peter shares, I'm finding this very subtle in terms of energetics. Still not clear to me.
I love this comment also, Peter. It is subtle in terms of energetics. For me, that subtlety, and I realize I do this implicitly, when I don't have an obvious energetic, and when I haven't had enough cliff tea over several weeks, I'm just happy. And I get that happy feeling, oh yeah, I'm home. That's what it is. I'm home. That right there. It's that feeling that, yeah, all of these flavors, this minerality, the mechanics of trying to appreciate this thing, the energetics of it, I'm just home. I'm just home. It's calming, it's grounding. And I think this is really important because when we think of energetics, sometimes we think of it as the moment. Okay, all right, I'm getting a shock. Okay, oh, that hurts, or oh, that's cold, that energetic. This isn't that. This is the energetic of a feeling of it's comfortable, it's warming. I definitely have a warming in my stomach. And I'm home.
Peter says, got it.
Okay. You know, the real reason I'm so happy today is I'm home with all of you. Because that's the other aspect of these trips. We really miss the tea community a lot. And when we're not here, of course, we're talking to tea elite in China, we're talking to tea people in Japan, but it's different. And that's just a different energy. Here, it's old friends and it's old tea friends, and it's fabulous. Thank you again for all the commentary. Weekly, we continue to learn from you, hopefully as much as you're learning from us. All right, I think I'm going to close up today. I'm wondering what's going to happen next week. Oh, that's right. I already talked a little bit about green robed narcissus as being an important varietal. in the Wui Mountains. That's what we're going to talk about next week. We'll have some other odd thoughts. It'll take me about 3 or 4 weeks to get rid of all the odd thoughts of everything that occurred on the trip. And I'll share those with you over the next 3 or 4 weeks. In the meantime, have a great week. Be healthy. We'll see you next Saturday. Bye-bye now.
Take care.